Hello and welcome to another episode of the Federal Church Presents Better Than Bloomberg, covering the 2023 global financial system collapse. Worst than ever. Another good note from, this note is from Peter Schiff's website. I don't agree with everything that Peter Schiff says, but he called the 2008 crisis too. And ever since then, pretty much has been saying how money printing is not a good idea. But SVB and Signature Bank were just the tip of the iceberg. This one puts it into a pretty nice perspective. I actually didn't know it was this bad. I knew it would be bad just by knowing how the banks operate, the conventions that they use or customs that they use, the textbook stuff, and of course, the kinds of people that end up there. So, again, like the funny part was, like in the Silicon Valley Bank, there was actually somebody from RBS there, but from the commercial side. They went for the investment banking side, they went from the trading side, and there's a difference. And I would know that too, sitting through a super day of that stuff and seeing, I think they brought in several hundred people, and after about 8 hours of interviews, like a full work day, a little bit longer than full work day actually, said, you, about, a couple hundred of them, you can go now. And then kept the other people that they planned on keeping, even though the bank got bailed out. We ended up losing our jobs. So, but, that's the kind of selection system that it goes through. So, and then that's what it is. It's a selection system. And these people that end up in the commercial bank, they don't have to be the best and brightest, but as I was saying, these people who end up in the commercial banks, they're not doing something sophisticated at all. It's a very simple concept. You take deposits and you make loans, and you give a little bit of interest for the deposits, and you take in more interest for the loans. That's all they do. And even this test, they managed to fuck up, which is why you have it's not a systemic failure. It's dipshits throughout the system that have failed. And that's why there's at least 200 banks that they've found so far. I guarantee you there's more. But like I said, just by knowing what these people do, and again, that's what my job would have been, was to know what these people do. But just by knowing what these people do, how they are, the kinds of backgrounds that they come from, it was very easy to figure out, that these people would be doing this and basically imploding their banks. But, this note puts it into perspective, because I knew it would be bad, but I didn't know it would be that bad. So it's definitely worth the book, like When Dipshits Fail. That would definitely be a good book for this stuff, to be written about this. But the demise of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank was just the tip of the iceberg. As it turns out, hundreds of banks are at risk. This explains why the Federal Reserve and U.S. Treasury rushed to provide what is effectively a bailout for the entire banking system. So, take a look at this thing. This is fucking ridiculous. That's 3/4 of the GDP of the United States. It's shitloads of money printing, and everybody's going to be poor for it, except for a very small fraction of people. But in the first week, the Federal Reserve handed out more than $300 billion in loans. That's already more than the 2008 collapse. Through its newly created bank term lending program, just to put things in perspective. According to a Washington Post report, banks would face unprecedented losses if they were forced to liquidate their bond portfolios as SVB. And again, this is the problem with this. This is the no excuse of how these people screwed up, because they're just simple depository institutions. They're not investment banks like Bear and Lehman and whatever else was, or whoever else played in that space back then with the I guess it was a lot of banks, right? But it wasn't an investment bank that comes up with exotic derivatives products or whatnot, or even plain vanilla derivatives products. It's not a bank that has a trading side that would be trading those things amongst everything else. It's just a bank that takes deposits from customers, a retail bank that takes deposits from customers, and then they use that money to loan it out in the form of buying of treasuries, toiletries as I call it, from the government, or whatever other debt products there are out there. Some are commercial real estate, some are other mortgage-backed securities. And it should be a very simple thing to do. And even that, these dipshits fucked up. So these banks no longer have any capital. And of course they're forced to liquidate their bond portfolios at losses. And they say this like it's a bad thing, because the other more ridiculous part of it is, over time, every passing day, these bond portfolios get more worthless in this inflationary environment and this interest rate environment. They just get more worthless. And saying that, they were forced to liquidate it, like, it would make a difference if they were holding these to maturity. No, it would actually be worse if you held it to maturity. So it's just completely ridiculous that they even make that argument. So, and again, anybody dumb enough to put their money in this, you deserve to get the bail-in and not get your deposit back. You have to be a complete fucking idiot. But according to the Washington Post, the total capital buffer in the U.S. banking system totals $2.2 trillion. Meanwhile, total unrealized in the system, based on a pair of academic papers, is between and $2 trillion. I didn't realize it was that bad. Like I knew it was going to be bad, but I don't have access to anything. I don't have access to Bloomberg machines. I don't have what terminals these days, right? I don't have these things that Zero Hedge could easily draw. Well, I guess I do. I guess I could look at some of the Fed stuff. I don't. That's my point. But nor do I get paid to do so. When you actually take a look at it, you see how bad it is at this point. I mean, this is something that these people should have realized would happen once the rates started raising. Once the central banks, giving their forward guidance, they were telling people, we're gonna start hiking rates, showing them the rate hike trajectory. This is something that these people should have fucking known. I mean, this is textbook introductory level stuff. Well, again, the part of the problem is that these people do it by convention. They just think the toiletries are risk-free. They're not. They still call them cash equivalents. Well, you just found out they're not fucking cash equivalents anymore, are they? So, the problem is that, the textbooks will tell these people, you buy U.S. toiletries when you take deposits, whatever. And this is how you run a commercial bank. Not in this environment. So, they should have known it, but they fucked it up. And that's why all these banks are now insolvent. And I didn't know it was this fucking bad. Which, to me, is, hilarious. But, obviously to them, this is something that they're going to try to keep, keep off of the Bloomberg fucking goddamn talking heads and cheerleaders and whatever you want to call them. Opiumers creditors, or what else is it? The people trying to get out of their own fucked up position, the wrong way trades. So, in other words, if banks, and again, think of this idiotic logic, if they were suddenly forced to liquidate. Because if you think about it, probably better that they be forced to liquidate or liquidate now versus having more losses later on, which is guaranteed, because this gets more worthless by the day. So, in other words, if banks were suddenly forced to liquidate their bond and loan portfolios, the losses would erase between 77% and 91% of their combined capital. That's all of their capital. So, when this goes to the shareholders, debt holders, then depositors in the bail-in, you see they had a subordination chart that I had in another video. It's in there somewhere. I'm not going to bother bringing it up. But in the U.S., it'll be different than they have it in the EU. But you see the subordination chart, and that means they're all wiped out. The shareholders are wiped out, the bondholders wiped out, and the depositors are taking massive haircuts. And then, whatever it says next is an understatement. It follows that large numbers of banks are terrifyingly fragile. They're not fragile. They're insolvent. They're gone. They're done. Nobody in their right fucking mind would be that person having their money in there to never see it again. I mean, it's just completely stupid as they are. But, this puts into perspective how bad it is. The second report by the Wall Street Journal cites a study from Stanford and Columbia University. Oh, and of course, the funniest thing, too, is watching the Bloombergs. I haven't seen too much of CNBC, but watching the Bloombergs and just watching them talk, whatever absurdities they're spewing, and then seeing stuff like Yellen today saying, everything is fine, but we need to print a couple $1 trillion. And like somebody else said, if everything's fine, you wouldn't need to print fucking $1 trillion. But, and that was the funny thing too about the Fed. They're making some big hoopla about, or at least I saw the headlines just now on Bloomberg on their website. Big hoopla about, what does Powell do next? Is it his Faulkner moment? No. It doesn't matter if he hikes 50 basis points tomorrow. You're printing trillions of fucking dollars. What kind of shit are you on? But the point to be made though is that they're trying to sensationalize God knows what things that don't matter when all your banks are insolvent. I mean, I don't think some of these people have grasped this yet. Like I see certain people have. Like I've seen some videos from, like people like Peter Schiff, they know what they're talking about. People like Rickards too, who, by the way, I still expect my royalties from those books. But they see what's going on. That one doesn't want to spend too much time, panicking people. But I mean, it's not a stuff panic. It's reality. And it's like what I was saying too. Okay, if Powell manages to cut 50 basis points tomorrow, then he signals things are pretty fucking bad. Kind of like printing trillions of dollars. So it's just absurd the things that they're saying. But back to the thing, A second report by the Wall Street Journal cites a study from Stanford and Columbia that found 186 banks are in distress. Those are just the ones they found. And it's that bad. Their entire fucking capital reserves are gone. And then as economist Peter St. Onge put it, in other words, we were already right up against the edge. No, they're already insolvent. The edge was a long time ago. This is precisely why the Fed had to create a way for banks to borrow against their devalued bond portfolio. Again, this is now, this isn't the lender of last resort anymore. This is the buyer of first order, I guess, in this situation. banks were put in a position where they had to sell those bonds to raise capital, they would have fallen like dominoes. So again, now, the Fed, who is also bankrupt, they are just going to be printing money to buy those garbage bonds. They can't sell them anywhere else. So, get nothing but massive inflation. Especially at those levels, those amounts of money. The Fed bailout may have plugged the hole in the dam, but it isn't. Again, this isn't an issue of liquidity. This is an issue of insolvency. And damn near every bank run by a dipshit is insolvent. But there will always certainly be more cracks in the future. How did we get into this situation? So Peter Schiff summed it up during an interview with Liz. It's because of the government that SVB was in the position that it was. The reason it owns so many long-term, low-yielding U.S. Treasuries and mortgage-backed securities was because the Fed kept interest rates at zero for so long. That's it, artificially low interest rates. Nerp. And the reason that it chose those assets was because bank regulators kind of push banks into treasuries and mortgage-backed securities because they give them favorable accounting treatment. They don't have to take any haircuts, but the depositors do. And even if they don't, even if they manage to, backstop 3/4 of the GDP of the U.S. of deposits, well, even if they keep their deposits, like Peter Schiff put so nicely, the money and the currency in which it is denominated will no longer be worth it. It will be worth much less than it was. They don't have to mark them in markets, so the government created the problem. St. Owen